Hi, and welcome to the Access MBA live session with INSEAD from the Fontainebleau campus in France. My name is Cecilia Valadares, and I'll be monitoring this one-hour interactive session. With us today, we have PJ, Anand, and Julia from INSEAD. We have many questions for you, and I will also be taking Q&A from the web viewers. So without further ado, let's get started with an introduction from each of our panelists.
Hi, I'm PJ Bellon. I'm Director of Marketing, Admissions and Financial Aid for our degree programs here at INSEAD. So that comprises our MBA program, our EMBA program, which we'll be talking about today, as well as our Master in Finance and our Executive Master in Coaching and Consulting for Change. And I'm very happy to be here with you today.
Hi, I'm Julia. I'm an MBA 14D. I will be graduating in a couple of weeks, and I just finished my last class yesterday, and I'm very happy to be here today to answer some of the questions or any interesting facts that you want to know about INSEAD.
Hello, my name's Anand. I'm the Chief Communications Officer here at INSEAD. I graduated from the Global Executive MBA program in 2013, so quite recently. And like my colleagues, I'm also happy to be here and happy to answer any questions you might have on the GEMBA program.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're going to get started with my first question, and it's for Julia. So can you tell us what the role of an MBA ambassador with INSEAD is?
Yes, so an MBA ambassador is someone who really is here to welcome the new students and to to answer any questions that they might have, to show them around campus. You know, the INSEAD campus is not too big. It's really easy to walk around, but when you start, it's really common to feel overwhelmed. And also, I found that this year I've been quite an active student ambassador, and I found that students also come and ask me questions after, so I become their point of contact because it's sort of the first student that they meet on campus. And I found that quite rewarding because when I started, I also had a lot of questions about classes, about library, and just lifestyle in general here at INSEAD. So I was glad to help.
Okay, thanks a lot. I'm going to talk a little bit about campus news. So today we're talking about both the full-time and the executive MBA. My next question is for PJ. So the EMBA celebrating the 10-year anniversary. We have a video up on our website. How have you celebrated throughout the year?
Well, we've done a number of things actually. We're very happy to be celebrating our 10th graduating class for the EMBA program. We actually have a section of the website which I invite everybody to check out, which showcases some of our successful alumni over the past 10 years, some of the milestones that we've gone through. So obviously we've gone from a relatively small class in Europe of 53 participants to the size that we are today, basically offering a global EMBA on our 3 campuses with almost 200 participants. So we're very, very happy to be where we are today. We actually celebrated, or the end of the celebrations was last evening with an event which was run in our Singapore campus in sort of conjunction with graduation, where we had a faculty speaker come in and talk about blue ocean strategy. We had an alumni panel, and we basically got together as many alumni as we possibly could to celebrate the anniversary and to network afterwards around a cocktail. So I hear it was, unfortunately I wasn't there because I was here in Fontainebleau, but I hear it was a great success. Other than that, we've created what we call a coffee table book, I think we're calling it, which is a special gift for our alumni, sort of marking the various different milestones throughout the last 10 years, interviewing some of our deans that have been very instrumental in growing the program, talking in general to some of our successful alumni. So there's been a lot going on around the 10th anniversary, and it's been a very exciting time for all of us.
Okay, thanks very much. My next question I'm going to ask to all of you, actually, because I'm sure you each have your own answer. What do you think that makes INSEAD unique, the MBA and the EMBA programs? What makes them unique? So we can maybe start with Anand, because we haven't heard from you.
What makes INSEAD unique? I have to answer that question in 2 ways. First of all is what it's like to actually be on the program. And secondly, what it's like, I think, when you leave the program and go out in the big wide world. Being on the program as business school for the world. It is quite extraordinary on a daily basis in every interaction to literally participate in the diversity that the world can bring. To have every discussion, every casual conversation being punctuated by people's different cultural perspectives is something that is so extraordinary but yet so simple at INSEAD that in fact we are so used to it. We don't realize how extraordinary it is until you go out in the big wide world. The second way I have to answer it is once you finish the program, certainly from the GEMBA program, you join an alumni network which doesn't begin to describe the richness of the kinds of people you're going to be meeting. And you're going to be meeting them from a social point of view because each of the alumni networks have activities in each of their countries. But secondly, of course, from a business point of view, it's a business school, so the extent to which you interact with them, knowing that you've gone through a shared experience. Combining those two in our brochures and our marketing, we use words like diversity and so on and so forth, but each of those has to represent a very personal experience. So every time you meet an INSEADer, yes, you share memories, yes, you share the experience of having gone through the same courses, but the way that it affects you, I have to say, is uniquely rich. And I think that's what makes INSEAD so special.
Thank you.
Right. I don't want to be repetitive, but for me what makes INSEAD special are the people. And when I say people, I'm not just saying students, but I'm including professors, everyone in the MBA office, admissions, marketing. It really does become a big family. And also, it comes to my mind, yesterday we just finished a project for a class, a social media class. And myself and a group of other students, we made a video and called it INSEAD DNA. So I think everyone who's here is special because we all share what we think is the INSEAD DNA, and that really creates a fantastic environment.
Okay,
And of course, I don't want to be repetitive either, and I don't need to use the mic, by the way. So, no, I think that Anand and Julia have summed it up very well. I think from a staff perspective, it's always a great pleasure to bring in a class to meet so many interesting candidates from all over the world with their own stories to tell. And of course, then when we're going out into the field and meeting with the alumni, the relationship continues well after graduation. So I think, back to your point as well about it's about the students, it's about the faculty, it's about the general quality and the general sort of the feeling of so many different experiences really to share, and so many. I think everybody is very special and very unique. So for us, it's also a great experience.
Okay. So we talked about diversity. I know that you also have global locations, so maybe you can remind people about your global locations and how those play a role in the INSEAD experience.
Sure. So obviously we're sitting here today in our Fontainebleau campus, which was our original campus, founded back in the late 50s. Since then we have opened a campus in Asia, in Singapore, and we're just going through the third phase of expansion. So it's actually become a very large campus to cater to an increasing demand for programs in the region. And of course we also have our Abu Dhabi campus, based in the Middle East, obviously. How do they play a role? Well, we're able to offer an experience for our participants and for our students, which is in a specific region, which gives them exposure to business in the region, to recruiters in the region. I'd like to emphasize the fact that our campuses are sort of fully integrated campuses, so they're not satellites, they're not sort of offices based in one of the regions. They really are proper campuses, like this campus that we're in today. The MBA students have the opportunity of studying in Fontainebleau and in Singapore, so they exchange at some point during the campus. I'm sure Julia can give some insights into that afterwards. In terms of the EMBA program, we offer a module in Europe, so on our Fontainebleau campus, in Asia, in Singapore, and also in Abu Dhabi in the Middle East. But something that's very important is that all of our students get an opportunity, like the MBA students as well, to study across all of our different locations. I would add as well that the MBA students also have an opportunity to study for a module on the Abu Dhabi campus as well. So I think it plays a really important role as part of the program, actually being in those regions. It's very important.
And I know both Julia and Anand have almost completed the program or have completed the programs both in EMBA and Fulltime. Can you speak for how the global campuses have affected your classroom experience at all? Or were you able to travel at all? Or
should I start?
Sure.
Right, I'm a diverse type of INSEADers because I stayed in Fontainebleau for the whole year. You know, it's great because you can actually choose to stay in one location for the whole year. You know, I know of my colleague students who stayed in Singapore. I didn't want to work in Asia, so for me it didn't make any sense. And at the same time, I think, you know, these type of decisions also you take into account like real life things like budgets because this is still a big investment. But a lot of my friends, even my P1, P2 study groups, they've all gone on to exchange in Singapore. And it really is a fantastic experience, not in terms of how the classes are, or in terms of campuses. Like PJ said, they are completely similar of, you know, how the professors approach the classes, you know, the classroom structure. But the experiences, the personal experiences that you can have in the campuses are very, very different. In terms of obviously traveling, people who are on the Fontainebleau campus travel a lot in Europe, and the people in Singapore really travel extensively in Asia. So you really get to learn about the culture of those countries. And for those who are interested in changing locations for work, if they want to work in Asia, it really makes sense to spend 1 term or 2 terms in Singapore, and vice versa for people who want to work in the United States or perhaps in Europe. Then it makes sense to spend a couple of months or a couple of terms in Fontainebleau. But it's very flexible. If, you know, people wanted, they could do 1 term here, 1 term there, 1 term here, 1 term there. They could, you know, keep going back and forth.
Excuse me, from the Global Executive MBA point of view, everyone I'm sure watching knows the reason you have the E in front of the MBA, the executive part, is because it's part-time. You can continue in your role in your company or organization. I can't overstate the importance and the impact of the global part. From the GEMBA courses point of view, you, as PJ described, you're studying in 3 integrated campuses. You're not doing a road trip to a smaller office and coming back. On the contrary, within the GEMBA program, we have what's known as 3 starts. So you have a group of people who begin in Fontainebleau, another group who tend to come from the Middle East, starting in the Abu Dhabi campus, and then Asian participants studying in Singapore. By the end of the 14 months, you've all been working together, you've all been doing case studies together. As you visit each of the 3 campuses, you're also meeting leaders from local companies, so CEOs, etc., come and give talks. Of course, you're visiting those companies. So at the end of the 14 months, you are immersed in not only the cultures of the places that you're visiting, but cultures from a work point of view. So that at the end of the 14 months, if you can imagine that you've now demonstrated your abilities and you've seen other people's abilities through the work that you've done together in upwards of 90 nationalities in one class over 3 locations, it means that after the GEMBA program, you are very well empowered to consider how you're going to use this network for either changes in your career or starting a new business or indeed moving to another part of the world.
Okay, thank you very much. So I want to remind the viewers on the web that they can send their questions into live, L-I-V-E, at accessmba.com. And we actually have some questions already starting to come in. So I'm going to ask you as they do come in. My first question is, how valuable is entrepreneurship as work experience for applying to INSEAD's MBA? And it's a 2-part question, so maybe we'll answer that first part. How important is entrepreneurship as work experience? Maybe PJ could answer that?
Sure. Well, that kind of will lead me into talking a little bit about what we look at in the as part of the application process. There's no one ideal profile because all profiles are very, very interesting. We're actually looking at 4 criteria. One of the criteria that we look at, obviously, is the academic capability of the students. The MBA program is as Julie will tell you, an incredibly intensive experience. So you really do need to be able to deal with the academics as well as the social side of things. So you need to be pretty good. The other area that we look at is the international motivation. So we've just been talking a little bit about diversity, and what we look for in our students is a certain cultural sensitivity and openness to learning about other cultures. And in general, the majority of our students actually have lived or worked outside of their work country. Then the third thing that we do look at is leadership potential. Now, this is perhaps where the entrepreneurship question comes in. We have students from all different sectors, from all different experiences, professional experiences. And as I say, there's no ideal profile. What we're looking for within any experience that the student or the applicant brings to the application process is career progression. We look at the recommendations to see how the people that they've worked closely with see them in the future. Are they future leaders? Do they see them, in the case of somebody who has an entrepreneurial experience, do they see them growing the company, becoming a real leader within their own area? So I would say it's of course important. Professional experience is very important as part of the criteria we look at. And as I'm on the subject, I would actually add the fourth criteria that we look at, which is the ability to contribute. And again, we've talked about sort of how unique so many of the students are, and the fact that they bring their very different experiences and opinions and life stories basically to the table and to the classroom and to outside of the classroom. Contributing to the classroom experience is just as important as actually taking away from the faculty and from your own peers what they have to share as well. So it really is a great sharing experience. Great. I hope that answers the question in a long way.
No, it absolutely does. The question is a two-part question. And so this person wanted to know if the experience of a failed startup is more or less valuable than that of a job at a top firm with decent growth and achievements. So is that something you look at if someone had an entrepreneurship project?
Absolutely. We learn from failure. What we're really looking for is what that person has taken away from that experience and how they intend to use it to evolve. So a failure would not be frowned upon as part of the application evaluation at all.
Okay, great. Anything to add to that? Maybe, Julie, you can speak a little bit about what your work experience was before you joined INSEAD.
Yeah, of course. Just add about entrepreneurship.
Sure.
INSEAD is really strong on entrepreneurship. There are a lot of very interesting courses. I've taken one as well, for instance. I'm not going to be an entrepreneur, but you still learn a lot. So I think coming from entrepreneurship and getting into INSEAD, it's actually very useful, even for an entrepreneur who's gone through that experience as well, and maybe someone could learn a different side of the story. So still very relevant, I think. And for my experience, so I'm one of the poets of INSEAD, so someone with a different background. So I come from the arts world. I studied history of art at university, talking about diversity for students. And I used to work in an auction house, and I wanted to change my role within my industry. So going from a more artistic role, so I was a specialist, someone who would value the artworks, and I wanted to switch into the business side, so being a business manager or into corporate development. And I really felt that I needed an MBA for that. I also thought in general that an MBA was something very useful for my future career and in my life. So, and indeed, I was able to achieve that. So now I'm going back to my old company as a business coordinator, and we'll see how that works out. It's quite exciting for me too, because it's something new I haven't done before. I have all my backpack of knowledge coming from INSEAD, and I'm looking forward to practice all the the theory that I've learned so far.
Okay.
To add to my colleagues' answers, there is, I think, an existing paradigm when one applies to any top school that somehow you already have to be polished before you even step through the door. But if one thinks about it, there's not much point spending at least a year of your life learning new things if you already know those things, or at least you present yourself as if you know them. So on the contrary, you'll find when you submit your application, we are looking for how will the INSEAD experience affect your perception of your strengths and weaknesses, such that when you finish the course, whether it be entrepreneurism or anything else, that year at INSEAD, it's a very significant expression, it's an important one, that year at INSEAD has made a difference. Now there's a couple of anecdotes I can give you. The first one is an entrepreneur. Please have a look at the example of Blah Cars. Now, Blah Cars is a wonderful example of somebody who had tried in entrepreneurialism. They knew a lot about computer coding. They had a little bit of a success, but not the success they were looking for in the marketplace. And they were quite direct in their application to INSEAD that the reason they were coming was they were looking for a stable of skills that they could then take into the marketplace. Now, only having graduated a couple of years ago, the CEO has just got his third round of financing at 160 million in some currency. Euros or dollars, whichever it is, it's significant. Yeah. And was very happy to come back and describe how that year at INSEAD had made a difference. So on I would actually say it's not so much whether you've succeeded or failed, because both those things are very relative. What we would say is that it needs to be put into the context of what you want to do at INSEAD. You will see that the essay questions, that whether you're doing the MBA course or the GEMBA course, do directly ask you about strengths and weaknesses and failure and so on and so forth. And the purpose of that is not to give some kind of glib answer. The whole point is for you to do some solid soul searching as to what are your strengths and weaknesses, and therefore what you're looking from the course at INSEAD.
Okay. And I would add that is actually a very important comment that Anand's just made, because what we're looking for on the admissions side is not what you think we want to hear. It really is about the fact that you've been spending a bit of time reflecting about yourself and about, as you say, your strengths and weaknesses, and being honest and being sincere in the application form is incredibly important for us.
Great. We have a question from the web, and it's related to the concept of sustainable development in the program. Before I get to that question, I would love to know about the specializations that are possible within the program, both for the full-time and the EMBA. Maybe, PJ, you can explain a little bit about how someone can specialize within the MBA.
Sure. So both of the programs are basically, and again, I won't go into too much detail, obviously, because there is a lot of detail on the web, but both of the programs consist of a series of core courses, which are really designed to bring everybody up to speed in basically the core disciplines of business. And then on the MBA side, you have a choice of 11 electives from, I don't know, about between 75 to 80 electives in any given class. And on the EMBA side, you have 4 electives, if I remember correctly, from a wide range of electives as well. And after that, you also have what we call the key management challenges, which are really about sort of cross-disciplinary courses. In both cases, in both programs, you have a wide choice which cover all disciplines, and so what you can choose to do, and again I'll ask my colleagues to talk a little bit more about their own choices here, but in principle what you can do is you can choose to specialize in a given area if you wish to. For example, on the MBA program, you could choose, once you've gone through those core courses, to do only finance electives, or to do only entrepreneurship based electives in order to meet your career goals, or to dig a little bit further into a topic that was really of interest. On the other hand, you could also just choose to do a wide range of electives which go a little bit further into those various different business disciplines that you've discovered during the core course. So it's very much up to you. I mean, bear in mind again that the MBA and the EMBA in general is a general management intensive course. So you're not doing an MBA in entrepreneurship or an MBA in finance, etc., but really the electives are where you can specialize. I don't know how you would describe your own experiences.
So I chose not to specialize. So for me, I guess I am I'm coming out as a general management type of role. But some of my colleagues did a lot of finance courses, and they're kind of, because they want to go into private equity or they want to go into investment banking. There are a lot of entrepreneurship courses, strategy with the Blue Ocean Strategy courses. You can also get a Blue Ocean Strategy certificate at the end. Yes, so I think it's important to specialize, but I would advise anyone who comes to INSEAD not to specialize too much, because the variety of the electives that we have, it's great. And for me personally, I wanted to do as many as possible and to take on a lot and to learn. So either whether it was marketing and social media, or a little bit of entrepreneurship, or a little bit of finance as well, just to have the the basics of everything. So for me, that was the goal.
To add to those both those points, as Julia described, there are people who come to INSEAD with a very specific speciality or role in mind after graduation, finance or whatever, and INSEAD does allow you through the electives to go very deep in those subjects, very deep indeed, to a world-class standard. Having said that, there's also people who come to INSEAD, and once you start exploring different subjects, which are perhaps outside the career you've had to date, it can be a very interesting experience and perhaps open your mind to what kind of activities or jobs you'd like to do afterwards. Now, either is perfectly fine. What I would add, however, I think this is not as well known, but again, perhaps we take it for granted, is that as an alumni, you can actually come back to INSEAD and choose to do electives in the future. So people who've graduated from the GEMBA program come back 2-3 years afterwards and come back for 2 weeks at a time to study specific electives. So you can imagine, we talk about lifelong learning. It really is, because as you tap into the subjects, whether you specialize or go broader, you're going to be speaking with the professors practically for the rest of your career. But as new electives are brought to the fore, I mean, Julia mentioned, for example, social media, which 5-6 years ago perhaps wouldn't have even existed as a subject. You can come back to INSEAD and study those at the highest level.
Okay, great, thank you. So we did have a question. It's how does INSEAD define the concept of sustainable development? Is that something that one of you could answer, or is that maybe a question that we could have someone send an email to know a little bit more about the...
Perhaps it's part of the course
content. The question needs a little bit of clarification.
Yeah.
If they mean, what do they mean by sustainable development in terms of running a business unit or a business out in the world?
How is defined the concept of sustainable development in INSEAD MBA program? How to develop concepts such as green infrastructure, ecotourism, local agriculture, energy saving during the MBA program?
Entrepreneurship.
Yep, it's a very good question.
Social impact and, yeah.
Two aspects there. First of all, we do look for applicants who are working in those areas. Secondly, you can imagine that a lot of areas, regardless of the elective, there will be, if I can use the cliche, there is a green component to it. There are people who specialize in that area as a matter of their careers. They're doing PhDs in it. They teach in it. You can imagine that even if there isn't a specific elective on it, you will be able to find experts who do nothing but green tech, whatever it may be, and incorporate that into whichever elective or startup or role you want to do after INSEAD.
We do have a lot of questions, so I'll go already to the next question. How is leadership potential gauged by INSEAD? What type of experience should I highlight in front of the admissions committee? And this is from someone in the U.S.
So I was just going to take the mic. I've just on the MBA side, I mean, very often the MBA students in general are sort of fairly early on in their careers, so leadership development is always a little bit of a difficult one to explain. But how do we look at it on the admission side? Well, what we're looking for in general is we do look very closely at the person's career progression. So has that person moved very quickly through a series of different roles? What are their responsibilities perhaps in their current job, or how have they evolved from the beginning of their career through to 4 or 5 years further on? Are they managing people? Are they managing budgets, etc.? It's not always the case, again, after 4 or 5 years work experience. But we also look at what the candidates are doing outside of the workplace. So Very often we find people who have some kind of leadership experience with regards to clubs or with regards to different initiatives that they've undertaken on a social level or at least extracurricular activities. And I think I mentioned earlier on as well, very importantly, we ask the recommenders basically to gauge the leadership potential. So when we ask for recommendation letters, we really do want to see people who've been working with the candidate very closely, not somebody you think we want to hear from, but somebody who knows them well in a professional context and who's able to really project where they feel that candidate could be 5, 6, 7, 10 years down the line. So we look at a number of different criteria, and I do focus on the potential side as opposed to the experience side with regards to our MBA students. I think on the EMBA it's a little bit different because the majority of our EMBA candidates already have a leadership experience which they're able to really showcase during the application process. Did you agree
was
with
the
that?
question specifically for MBA or both?
No.
Oh, okay, it was for both. Yeah.
Okay, so to add on the MBA side, as PJ described, for the MBA you're talking about 4 or 5 on average years of experience. For the EMBA you're talking about an average of 15 years experience. So we really are looking for people who can demonstrate already a leadership in their particular role or in their particular field. Now there's a reason for this. Again, we're not talking about coming as a polished product. The whole point is to learn from the course as well. But we are looking for your ability to contribute to peer-to-peer learning. Now, if you're talking of a class of, say, 50 people in one particular subject or elective, you will be learning as much from each other's experience in the particular subject as you'll be learning from the faculty. So the two sort of broad things we're looking for is, first of all, a demonstration of leadership, and secondly is the idea of what do you bring to the table, what do you bring to the discussion.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, so actually, Anand, I'm going to go back to you because this question is about the EMBA, and it is from Lourdes Quinteros, and she asks, is it possible for executive MBA students to use the on-campus recruiter if they wish to change careers?
Can they use the on-campus recruiter?
Or I guess
career
they
services.
think that, yeah, more like career services.
Yes, absolutely. Please excuse me. It's just a difference in terminology.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. The career services actually have a completely dedicated section for the Global Executive MBA program. It has a further richness because, of course, you're talking about people who have reached quite a senior level in their own organizations and in their own field. The career services starts right from the very beginning of the program, right at the very beginning. It's in 2 broad areas. The first one is obviously, in a sense, presenting you as a product to the industry. So whether it be looking at your CV or your the way that you present yourself, interview technique, I mean all of the fundamentals, but at your level. And secondly is, I think, something that we'll come on to, which is the leadership development program. I believe the LDP is unique to the Global Executive MBA. It is a thread that goes from the very first day of the GAMBA program all the way to the last. It's essentially a group-run program. So the idea is you're together with an LDP group of 4 or 5 peers. You are very carefully put together in a group based on what we see as the strengths and weaknesses, the qualities that you have in your application. And you will work with a coach for the total 14 months on an ongoing basis. Now the reason for this, and the reason that's connected to career development, is quite often one gets to the end of, say, 15 years in your career and you can't see the wood from the trees. You know, you've specialized in a particular area. There are subjects that you do as a matter of course because they're a part of your subject, part of your career choice. Once you actually start a program like GAMBA, your perspectives are widened. This happens a lot. And as a result of that, it's important not to begin the career process with, well, I just want to skip a level in whatever I'm doing. It's important to connect it to your personal development because you may well find that you want to take a bit of a 90-degree turn or a slight difference, a subtle difference in what you're actually doing. And the work that you'll do with your LDP group will actually help you identify that.
Okay. Thanks very much. So since we're talking both about the full-time and the EMBA, Maybe, PJ, can you tell us why one would choose one or the other? What's the difference in fit, basically, for those who may not know?
Sure, absolutely. Well, so the actual audience that we're addressing through both of these programs are very different audiences, and they actually have very different motivations. Well, no, I shouldn't say very different motivations, but they do have different motivations. Just to sort of, re-emphasize, the MBA program is a full-time program. It's a 10-month program. So the candidates that we see, or the audience that we're addressing through the MBA program, are young professionals who have, on average, about 4 to 5 years work experience. The lowest is generally around 2 years. Probably the highest is about 10, 11 years. The motivation for doing the full-time MBA program is really about career change. So the majority of our participants on the MBA program have left their jobs, and they're really sort of exploring other options. So I think, obviously it's not exactly Julia's example, because Julia's staying in the same industry, but she's certainly changed function within an industry. So we look at career change on 3 dimensions. We look at sector, function, and geography. And the majority of our students will make a change on one of those dimensions. I think about 84% of our full-time MBA students make some kind of career change. When you start combining those dimensions, then obviously that number goes down. And in fact, I think we've got about 24% of our full-time MBA students who make a 3-dimensional career change immediately after graduation. On the EMBA side, as Anand's mentioned, it's a modular program. The participants that come to the program continue to work during the entire program. They're more senior. The average for the current class is 13 years work experience. Most of them will have been working already in a senior management role for at least 4 to 5 years. And I think, and again, I'll ask Anand and Julia perhaps to give a little bit more insight into this, but in general, what would drive an EMBA candidate would be it's more about professional and personal development. So it can be about career change, it can be about moving up within your own industry. You might have reached a level where you feel you just need that broader knowledge or skill set to be able to move into a general management role. It might be about exploring options because, again, you might have reached a stage in your career where you feel it's time to move out of that particular industry or that particular function. But it is also very much about personal development as well. And I think, as you've mentioned, and we'll talk a little bit about the important role that the leadership development program has to play in the EMBA, which is a big differentiator between the MBA and the EMBA program.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to ask my next question for Julia. And so it's kind of leading from PJ, what you said. What was your personal motivation? You talked a little bit about why you wanted to do an MBA. Why did you choose INSEAD? Maybe talk a little bit about both.
Yes. So, as I said, I reached a stage in my career where I sort of sat down and I thought about where I wanted to go. And because I wanted to make the transition from my previous role, which was more art-based, to a business role, and I didn't have the skills to do that, I started thinking, okay, what can I do? And the MBA seemed, the right choice. At the same time, sort of in general, having an MBA is still something quite useful to have. So it the MBA answered both of my decisions. Why INSEAD? Well, it would be easier to give an answer of why not coming to INSEAD, because for me, INSEAD was everything that I wanted from an MBA. Is 10 months. So for me, I'm 33, so I'm not. I'm one of the oldest within INSEAD, so towards the oldest, and I didn't want to be out of the job market for too long. I want something very focused, not too diluted. I feel the impression that the 2-year programs are a bit sort of diluted. I wanted to come here and concentrate and be surrounded by people with the same mind frame. Because that's also quite important. I think INSEAD is quite special because everyone who's here doing the full-time MBA, they're all here to work. They know that they're gonna work hard, play hard, because that's kind of the INSEAD rule. And then I came to visit the campus, and I really felt at home. I felt very welcome from past students, from the marketing department, everyone working here, and it really felt like a good fit for me, for my personality. I wanted a very international MBA, and this was it. So it really ticked all the boxes for me. And also, I never lived in France, so I thought it could be a good idea. Yeah, French. Yeah.
Maybe Anand, you can add for your experience.
Sure, absolutely. While Julie was talking, I was actually going back to what it was like for me to apply over a year ago. What I would say is when I told everybody, you know what, I'm going to be applying to do an executive MBA and the cost of the course, quite a few of my friends said, why don't you go buy an Aston Martin? Because I think the price was about the same. And I'm going to use that as an analogy for why INSEAD. One considers an expense of that amount. You have to look at the product details. You have to look at the excellence of the product. You have to look at the sheer technical quality of it. And I did shop around. I did look at a large number of programs. I even flew to the States for interviews. And I could not fault the quality of the INSEAD product. Everything from the world-class faculty to the depth of research, all the way beyond the program into the breadth and the quality of the alumni network. Secondly, though, I have to go then to the emotional side. Of course, why did my friend suggest an Aston Martin? It's not because it's an efficient way to go to the supermarket. It's because of the emotional nature of the purchase. And that feeling of being at home is very important, Now, I must qualify that with a joke. There's a joke at INSEAD which is never ask an INSEADer where do they come from, because it will take them about half an hour to answer. They'll describe the countries they've lived in, they'll describe their multicultural background, and so on and so forth. Having said that, that is not a prerequisite to come here. It can be a destination. So for many people on the GEMBA program, they had reached the limits of their national career, and it was becoming very important to them to launch into a regional or a global career. And the GEMBA program is one hell of a takeoff because of how I answered before. And then it becomes a home. And for many other people, because of the global nature of their career already, or the regional nature, to come to an INSEAD campus, to be interviewed, to see all these different nationalities together, it immediately feels like home. So rather than being the exception in the office because you're one of the few global managers, suddenly you're in a classroom where everyone has parallel, not the same, but everyone has parallel experiences and can also bring a richness to the experience that you can.
Okay. Thank you very much. So in your answer, you spoke a little bit about North America. And actually, a few people from the web have asked various questions about North America. So one of the questions was, you have a campus in Europe, you have a campus in Asia, and you have a campus in Middle East. Why not have a North American campus? That's the first part of the question. The second part of the question is, do U.S. companies actually recruit from INSEAD? And the third question was, how many U.S. students do you have? So maybe PJ can answer that.
Okay. So to start with the campus, we don't have a US campus, obviously, but we do have a number of partnerships. So for our MBA students, for example, they have an opportunity to exchange not just between Singapore and Fontainebleau and also to spend a little bit of time in Abu Dhabi, but for one of the periods, a period being 2 months, they also have an opportunity to go and study either in Wharton or in Kellogg. So that's really sort of it completes the global experience without investing into a fully fledged US campus, I would say, as part of the overall experience. The second question, I'm
was
sorry.
How many do US companies come to recruit at INSEAD?
Right. So Well, we have a lot of global companies coming to recruit, I would say. So some recruiters are coming in, obviously, to recruit for the US. I mean, I think to set expectations, it is quite important to underline the fact that for non-US citizens going to work in the US, or folks who don't have, you know, an opportunity to get the visa, it's a little bit more difficult. And I have to apologise because I don't have the statistics with me, so we could actually get them and share them online, I think, in terms of just, you know, how many of our students actually go to the US. And I think the third question was actually about how many students come to us from the US. And I don't have the statistic top of my head either, but I think it's one of our biggest populations actually that come to INSEAD. It's probably the second biggest nationality that comes to the MBA program. Yes. In terms of the EMBA, I think I have to apologise. In terms of statistics, it's a little bit more difficult for me to retain all the statistics, but we can certainly make them available, no problem whatsoever, after this session.
Great.
Yeah, if I can add a Gemba slant to that, as PJ described, there's a full integrated partnership with Wharton and Kellogg, and it really is integrated. Not only as an MBA can you potentially go and spend time studying in the institutions, we also have PhDs swapping between campuses, and we have faculty swapping between campuses. Now, to give you a very simple example of that, connected to the question earlier about entrepreneurship, we have a Gemba class, a Gemba elective called Identifying New Business Opportunities. This is a course which literally puts you into the thick of identifying ideas or concepts that can be turned into a company or into an entrepreneurial idea. Now, this is done in conjunction with Wharton, and it's actually done at Wharton's campus in California. So the Gemba class who are taking the elective will actually go to California. They spend time actually meeting the founders of well-known internet companies. I believe on the last occasion they actually met people who set up Airbnb, for example, but again, we need to check this. You then, through the matter of course, as a matter of that course, you then come up with concepts and new ideas, and then you actually have an opportunity to present it to Silicon Valley investors. Now, is that an INSEAD course? Yes. Is it happening on somebody else's campus? Wharton, yes. But I think what it allows us to do is, BJ said, is to basically be global, fundamentally global, but at the same time, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, we're essentially taking the advantages of institutions, some of the most respected institutions in the US, and having a completely integrated partnership with them. It works for us, and I'd like to think it works for them as well.
Okay, thanks very much. So you spoke about the Kellogg partnership. I want to ask you now about the Tiamba program, which is your dual degree program with Tsinghua University in China. I hope I pronounced that right. So PJ, why would a potential student choose this instead of the classic global MBA? Or the EMBA, rather.
EMBA. Yeah. Well, it's basically it's part of the INSEAD EMBA portfolio. So we have our global EMBA and we have our Tiamba EMBA, which is the dual degree or the partnership between Tsinghua and INSEAD. Why would somebody choose it? Well, basically, we're very happy to have been able to partner with one of the best business schools, so the Tsinghua School of Economics and Management in China. What they have to offer is a Chinese perspective. So, in other words, an experience in the region based around one of the fastest and most important emerging markets in the global economy. And so we feel the combination between what Tsinghua has to offer, which is primarily focused around that region, and INSEAD's global perspective is very important together. So you get the in-depth insights into what it's like to do business in China. At the same time, you also get the insights into what it's like to do business with the rest of the world. So there are two, I guess, two types of audiences. One audience would be a business person who's in China and who's really looking to broaden their horizons and to within the context of their company, do business outside of China and to really understand a little bit better how to do business outside of China. And then, of course, on the other hand, you also have all of those folks who are outside of China who are looking at understanding a little bit more about what it means to do business in China and what it means to collaborate, I guess, collaboration between East and West, essentially. The approach is also transferable to other emerging markets as well. So anybody who's interested in sort of investing or looking into doing business with or in emerging markets would probably be interested by our TMBA program. So we feel that they're complementary.
Okay, thanks very much. Anything to add to that? No. Okay. I just want to remind viewers we have about 10 minutes left for our live session, so if you have any last-minute questions, again, the email address is live@accessmba.com. I'm going to go back to one web question. It's from Ileana, and says, I know that INSEAD offers its own admissions test. Is it better to take the GMAT or your test? And how can I prepare for the INSEAD admissions test?
For the GEMBA test, absolutely. Well, I'll perhaps give you a very brief answer, but then I'll ask Anand to give some more details, because I believe you did the test, right, Anand? One of the reasons that INSEAD decided to launch an INSEAD test was again addressing the different needs of a senior audience, as opposed to the audience for the full-time MBA. We realised that the GMAT, well, first of all, it takes a lot of preparation. It's more adapted to a younger audience who are not that far from undergraduate or graduate school. And it's what the INSEAD test aims to do is to test the same skills, to test the same potential, but perhaps in a more business-related manner. So the vocabulary is more adapted to business. What the test takers will see is something that they're perhaps more used to seeing in the everyday context that they're working in. So in business in general, there's no right or wrong answer. I mean, people can do both. Well, people can do both. People can choose between the two. And what we like about the INSEAD test, in addition, though, is that, well, we think our candidates like it as well, is that it gives you an opportunity actually to come to one of our campuses and to present in front of a jury. So you get to visit the campus, you get a feel for what the campus is about, as well as actually coming to do the test. Now I'm going to let Anand answer the question in more detail, because I think, Anand, you were one of the first class, you were the first class to actually take the EMBA test, I believe.
I'm not sure about that, but I suggest I'm one of the unique people who's taken the test and is now testing the test.
That's a very good point as well. Absolutely, absolutely.
Yes, to build on PJ's answer. First of all, the preparation is the same. I actually hadn't decided whether to take the GMAT test or the INSEAD test. 6 months before I started, I on one of these internet companies where you can prepare for the GMAT in detail, and I'm very, very glad that I did. Now, keep in mind, if you go to the website for the GEMBA program, it will describe what the contents of the test are. So it's not essential to do absolutely every corner of the GMAT preparation. Having said that, once you have prepared in that area, it means that the kind of questions you'll be getting in the INSEAD test, you'll be immediately familiar with them. The kind of areas you don't want to focus on, and again it's clearer to you if you actually look at the information online, is you won't be asked questions like there's a barrel of beer and the length decreases by X and the width increases by Y. How much less beer is there in the barrel? I mean, there's kind of stuff that you get in GMAT that you have to do within 90 seconds, I think, per question. Okay, so the INSEAD GEMBA test will put you under the same mental pressure, but will actually present you with the kind of information that you're probably seeing on a day-to-day basis at work.
Yeah, yeah.
The second aspect, as PJ described, is you get an opportunity to present, to have a look at and consider your perspective on, and then present your thoughts on a case study. Now, the reason we take this approach is all MBAs, EMBAs, the backbone of the work that you do is casework. So you're given case studies, you're expected to work through them with your classmates, and then present a perspective on how you would handle this case in real life. You can imagine, because of the importance of peer-to-peer learning in the GEMBA program, it becomes almost critical, your ability to look at a case study and bring your perspective on what's happening in that case study based on your work experience to date. So it's not that we give you a case study to get a right or wrong answer. We listen extremely carefully to how are you approaching this case versus perhaps another candidate. Who is we? There'll be a panel of 3 people. We like to have a member of faculty, a senior member of staff, and a GEMBA alumni. All 3 will be listening to you from their own perspective. There's no discussion afterwards. Each one considers you as a participant on the course, and as I said, what you'll bring to the table. And then after this section, we have an open interview. The purpose of the interview is just to get to know your motivations for joining the course, and also gives you a chance to ask any questions to 3 of the perspectives that run INSEAD. Now, I'm not trying to sell you on coming to do the INSEAD test, because I said the preparation is exactly the same. I think for some people, they like to drill down into the preparation that you can do for a GMAT and really, really focus on the GMAT. I think other people like to broaden it a little bit and also consider preparation for case study, etc. But either way, you will have to prepare in the same way.
Okay, thanks very much. We actually just have about 5 minutes left, so I want to ask this question, especially to Julian and Anand, since you've done the program. 2-part question. So first part is, what do you consider the INSEAD experience has brought to you personally and professionally speaking? So that's my first question. Go ahead.
So I've discussed a little bit about my professional outcome. So I think has given me what I wanted. So I left my company before starting INSEAD. So I started INSEAD with, a free mind. I thought it's great. It's a great opportunity to also see whether actually there is something else that I want to do. But the passion for my industry remained, and therefore then I committed myself to go back. And so I did. But also, as I said, I wanted to move to the business side, and I'm doing this. Fingers crossed I will be successful at it. I really hope so. But I always think that the INSEAD MBA will always be with me. So at any point in my life where I'm ready to maybe switch industry or change career, all the advice that I got throughout this year will always be with me, and this will be possible. So even though I'm not a career changer right now, I'm sure that if I get to that point, having done INSEAD will still be very useful. And in terms of on a personal level, well, it has given me a lot. It's really hard to sort of pin down. Also, it's my last day here before graduation, so I am a bit emotional. Certainly friendship. And I was a bit skeptical at the beginning because when I talked to alumni, everyone said to me, it was like, oh my God, you're going to meet amazing friends. They will be, friends for life. And I just thought, well, it's 1 year. I've had friends I've known for 10 years. Those are friends. But actually, I have to say, it's true. Because the program is so intense and you're basically on campus all day long. You're always especially with your study groups, or you get to know people really well. And the emotions that people go through this year, you think you're the only one feeling certain things. It could be, happiness, could be being overwhelmed, but actually everyone else is the same. So it becomes a very empathic kind of friendship, and people also go through personal problems, or people get married or have children. So it's a 1 year. It's 10 years of life condensed in 1 year. And I've grown a lot just by getting to know, the people that I've met. So many incredible stories. And I thought I was sort of successful before, but actually, success is something else. It's from personal life, and you've met met some great people with great personal stories. So.
Thank you. And just quickly, maybe Anand can also add to that.
Yeah, sure, very quickly. I have to give an anecdote on what Julius has described. As a part of my role, I meet a lot of alumni. and I'm not kidding, we actually have banners at INSEAD that say welcome back 50-year anniversary or 40-year anniversary. So many of the alumni I've spoken to all over the world, so many of them will say that even after 10, 20 years, their best friends are still the ones that they made at INSEAD. So just an anecdote for what you have to look forward to. What I would, same for the GEMBA program, since we're short of time, but one of the things I would add to the GEMBA program is almost an overwhelming level of choice. I mean, once you've actually studied with 200 people across 3 campuses all over the world who are all in senior positions from dozens and dozens of countries, with a network that goes with it, with a skill set that is world-class, with a leadership development program that's allowed you to have a very strong, but at the same time secure and offline look at your own strengths and weaknesses. At the end of the program, you really are empowered. You really are, to the extent that you can choose whatever you want to do. That might sound like hyperbole. That might sound like marketing speak, as it were. It's simply that I've seen so many of my classmates over 14 months change to such a degree that for them to state a new objective of what they want in their life or where they want to live or what kind of career they want to do and look at me in the eye as if to say, this is what I'm going to do. This is not a suggestion. This is not just another idea. This is something they're going to go for. And a few months later, I ask how they're doing, and they have done it.
Okay. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we are out of time. I want to thank all of the participants, of course, PJ, Julia, and Anand for being here, as well as the web viewers. If we didn't get to your questions, please, you can still email live@accessmba.com, and we will pass those questions on to INSEAD. Thank you all for being here, and please stay tuned for the next live session, and have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.